winning. Fist up. Fight back. Fist up. Fight back. We are winning. We are winning. All right, next up, we're going to roll with the program, and we're going to have some political overtone, overtones, but we're going to put it in a nice political framework. We have with us Chairman Mobilization, Kenny Hess, and yes, we have part of the Movement 3 and who were participants in the Black and Black Coalition this past weekend, which was November the 1st and the 3rd. So first, before we go any further with that, we have a 3-minute clip of the raid to let you know how we got to this place that we are today.
Mm-hmm.
This is the FBI. You have a federal warrant for this address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant for...
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need? Need one. I don't know. What's hold that money? Thank you.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Uhuru.
All right. I'm gonna read more stuff with this, but I didn't mention the thing is Agonize, so organize. And that's very important because we'll have an overview looking at the whole election cycle and things like that. So some of the points that's coming up next that will probably be highlighted. And you look at this concept of genocide, what is Nazi Holocaust and things of that nature, but all of this under the mask of colonialism. So the chairman will come up next and debunk a lot of this and give us a little political overtone when we see if we want to have something on the fifth in this presentation as well.
Thank you, Carmen, for the introduction. And we're going to be showing a clip of what happened last weekend in terms of the mobilization, the Black People's March on the White House and the conference that we had following that. And so I want us all to be able to see some of those clips. I'm going to talk about it for a little bit, and hopefully when we come back up, the shorter clip, hopefully Comrade President General Zachary Garuda can join us up here. And in the interim, while we're looking at the clips, we might want to be down there so we can see it, you know. We organized this meeting under the theme of don't agonize, organize. And we thought that was an important theme to bring to this meeting because so many people had put all their hopes and aspirations for the future and the campaign, the candidacy of Kamala Harris. And this was done also with the assumption of the election of Donald J. Trump representing a doom for African people. And as I've said before, in many ways it does represent doom. In the same way Kamala Harris's election would have represented doom. In the same way Clinton's and Obama's elections represented doom. And by that, what I mean is that we exist as a colonized people where somebody has taken our power from us. And that as long as you don't have power over your own life, and foreigners and aliens have power over your life, then doom is something that you can look at every day. They raise this issue of Trump representing fascism. Most people don't even know what fascism is, or the concept even comes from. It's just something that's now come to be a dirty word that you use against people who don't act the way you think they should, or who appear not to act in a democratic fashion. But fascism is a concept that was brought to the forefront in around 1915, 1916 by a man named Benito Mussolini in Italy. It was a concept that finally was adopted later by Adolf Hitler or the National Socialist Party of Germany, which were called Nazis. They took up that, and then even Franco in Spain took up the term Franco, and fascism. And the most of the problems that people have with fascism is associated with what happened to Jews in Germany. That's the horrible thing that people point to as examples of fascism. But there is no, you can't come up with a definition. You come up with 3, 4 different definitions, and they don't hold water. It's like calling somebody an Uncle Tom. You don't know what an Uncle Tom is until somebody acts a certain way. But we're saying that it's possible to find society and people and elements in society without having them to do something. And that there should be a definition of what they call fascism that doesn't require somebody to say, hey, they just open up ovens, everybody go in, to know that it's fascism. They don't have such a definition. They say Mussolini did things that had big parades and had uniforms, and they hated communists, and they were warmongering and things like this. This is what gave it its definition. That's what the same thing it said about Hitler. Yeah. Even Garvey at one time said, well, Mussolini got this fascism thing from me. I have the biggest parades and uniforms that you can find. So you can't get a good definition like that. But a problem with this definition, this concept of fascism being upon us, is how it is served to liquidate the colonial question. That before Mussolini was born, but before Mussolini was even thought of, the terror that was visited upon African people, upon indigenous peoples, here, another place around the world, were horrific. They talk about 6 million Jews dying in Germany. And that's horrible for 6 million people to die, for 2 million, for 1 million person to die. But the fact is, if you read people like Walter Rodney and Hosea Joffre, the colonizers, Europeans, killed something like a third of the 600 million people who occupied the continent of Africa at the time. They killed 200 million people. So the 6 million people that they talk about is used as a means of blunting criticism of the founding of the whole colonial empire, the founding of this social system that we suffer from. Because if the worst crime in human history was what happened to the Jews, or fascism is all this horrible thing, then what about us? What about the indigenous people who you don't even see? What about those people living in concentration camps that's called Indian reservations today? They don't count. And I'm saying that we get misdirected when we get pointed in this direction of our struggles against fascism. I'm saying this in part because I was listening today on Black Cloud 96. It's a radio station that's a part of the Guru movement in St. Petersburg, Florida, and you can get it, online. And one of the shows on Black Cloud 96 had people who we know, who in some instances have been supportive of us, and they were talking about the problem with the election and how they sum up the election problem is that Kamala Harris, she lost this election, and she lost this election because her stance on Black people, and that she would not deal with Black people. She went so far as to ask people to vote for her while she was killing people in Palestine. And Black people wouldn't do that because that would be voting for genocide, and Africans wouldn't do that. And then she said that to ask people to do that would be asking people to vote for fascism, because that's what fascism do. Only ones who would do that are fascists. Well, the point is Kamala Harris is the one who did that, and the Democratic Party did that. Trump didn't do that, but he's been put forth as a, I'm not saying Trump won't do that, but it's not he who did that. So what they hold up as the fascist factor is usually false. And why they say this in part is because they want people to vote against the other sector of the ruling class. When you see this thing called fascism emerge, it's because a crisis happens in the social system, in the capitalist system that is rooted in colonialism. When this crisis happens, then they go haywire. They sacrifice anything that looks like democracy among themselves. This is what they call fascism. But the thing is that they've been doing this to African people all this time. We even recently had access to a court. We used to have a slogan. They used to lynch us, they used to hang us in a tree. Now they lynch us legally because this is what we were confronted with all the time. So in terms of their summation of the election, the real problem was that fundamentally what they were saying is the rights that we have or don't have, or the freedoms that we should have within the system we live in. And of course, we have to fight for freedoms in the system that we live in. But that's not the fundamental contradiction. The fundamental contradiction is the system that we live in rests upon the foundation of our enslavement. And that if your strategy, if what you're doing is not tethered to realization, to the struggle against the fundamental contradiction, which is foreign and alien domination, then you can't come up with good solutions, and you end up fighting for one sector of the bourgeoisie against another sector of the bourgeoisie, as opposed to fighting for our own freedom, which is what we are involved in doing. So I wanted to make those comments. And I also wanted to say in the process that that this thing that's been put before us, you have to be afraid of, they say 2025, that's gonna be horrible. That's something that Trump, has put forth, let's say. And that Trump, is really a horrible person, and he may be. But what I do know for sure is that Joe Biden is the one who put 100,000 policemen in the streets of this country. He's the one who started that siren song about crime and 100,000 policemen in our communities, because he knew it was speaking to white people. He's the one who is responsible for that crime bill. He's the one who it's his administration that attacked my house at 5 o'clock in the morning, pre-dawn. They preside over some of the worst crimes against the people. And again, that same thing is true of what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden did in Palestine. And it was the Democrats and Republicans who killed Patrice Lumumba. And this is the reality that we're looking at. And so the power has to be in our hands. That's what Amanla means, isn't it? Amanla. What? Away to. The power is ours. That's what the struggle has to be. We have to have our own power. That's the struggle that we're involved in. So I just wanted to say those things, and we can talk more about that. I think that part of what we wanted to do with this meeting, and I'm offering a self-criticism from the very beginning, because this meeting and the meetings that we have here on Sunday, they are supposed to represent a strategy for having people to come to processes where political education and culture can be shared with the masses of our people. And then upon doing this, we win people to participate in organizing in our own communities. And the fact is that we should be in those communities and we're not. And that's the problem. And the fact is that if we know that's what we're supposed to be doing with these sessions, then most of the time when we are not here on Sundays, we should be working to get people here on Sunday. We should be actually doing that kind of work. That should be the basic strategic work we're doing, and it's not. And the Sunday meeting is sort of something that sort of happens. And in many ways anarchistically. So I just wanted to make those comments. So how are we looking in terms of time?
We're ready for the split. I mean, or
How are we
a
looking in
split.
terms of time? How many minutes have I had? I had a few minutes. Okay, come on, this is what I want to say. The thing that made this significant in Washington, D.C. It's work that we've been doing as a party and as a movement now for a long time. We initiated the founding of the African People's Socialist Party as a means by which we complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s. Revolution that Comrade Zaki participated in when he was working for the Black Panther Party. Black Panther Party was working for what? Against colonialism. It was an organization against colonialism. Although many people have forgotten that, many people who hold up the Black Panther Party would prefer not to remember that the Black Panther Party was an organization against colonialism. Malcolm X was talking about colonialism. He talked about how colonialism in Europe and Britain and England and what have you. He said America is the greatest colonial power in the world. He said it's worse than all the other because it's a hypocritical colonial power. So we lived under colonialism. The Black Panther Party talks about colonialism. People like Stokely Carmichael and Kwame Ture talked about colonialism. The Hunter Militant Organization, Jomo, talked about colonialism. The Young Lords talked about colonialism. That was what the whole struggle was all about during that time. And that's what they went out. That's what inspired the head of the secret political police called the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover. That's what he was about when he said he's going to wipe out these organizations. He put forth a whole program to destroy what he called Black nationalist hate groups. And we were hate groups because we wanted to have our own power over our own lives. And that was the movement that they attacked. That was the movement they destroyed. That was the movement that was responsible for the death of Malcolm and Martin Luther King and Che Guevara and the overthrow of the government of Kwame Nkrumah and the murder of Patrice Lumumba. It was this struggle that we were involved in around the world against colonialism, to take our own power in our own hands away from those who had attacked us as Africans, attacked us around the world and built empires on our backs. So that's what it was about. And so it wasn't good enough just for them to hurt us, to kill us, to crush our movement. They crushed our movement, they dispersed our freedom fighters around the various places. And many of them actually left the country. Some have left the country, never returned from the 1960s. Many of them were in prison. You had a 500% increase in the number of prisons in this country with the beginning of the attack on the Black Power movement in this country. So many went to prison, but they didn't just do that. They elevated another sector of the population to be so-called leaders and spokespersons for our movement. You've heard Malcolm, we talked about this considerably. And so now, instead of fighting against colonialism, we're fighting against racism. The ideas, the attitudes in the heads of white people, which you can't control. But what you can do is move to control our own lives, make sure that we have a future. That takes political power. That takes self-determination. That takes the ability to be a self-governing people, like all people who have a sense of dignity would be engaged in. And so that's the process that we picked up some time ago. That's the process that was responsible for our work to build the Black is Black Coalition, to attack also this ideological assault that was made on us, so that Black people could come back together, talk about self-determination, talk about wanting to free ourselves from colonialism. 18 different organizations are now a part of that, with greater or lesser influence and participation, but that's the case. And we have succeeded in winning this understanding in various places in this country and around the world. That colonialism, you hear it talked about now all the time. All the time. People talk about colonialism this one. And you even hear them talking about settler colonialism. And they talk about settler colonialism because colonialism is when foreign enemy power come and take possession of your freedom and your resources, etc. But there are different kinds of colonialism, by which I mean colonialism expresses itself one way when a group of Europeans leave Europe. They go to a country, they go to a place called Palestine. They take the land, they kill and oppress the Palestinians, and they settle there. They change the name from Palestine to Israel. They call themselves Israelis, and act like they've always been here. Europeans leave Europe and they come to this land that we're on now. They take the land from the people, from the indigenous people, and they kidnap, and then they settle here, and they call it America, and then they call themselves Americans and give them impression they've always been here. And the same thing, of course, has happened to Africa and how we got to be here. Then they kidnapped us. They went to Africa, South Africa, as it was called. They went to places like what we call Rhodesia, named for a white man named Cecil Rhodes. And then they kidnapped us and bring us here. And then so we have a settler colony. This is what it is, a colony that's inhabited by settlers who came here and took this land by force and took it from the people and committed near genocide against the people. And then they brought us here. And so we are here in what would be called domestic colonialism or internal colony. But internal colony, we say it's internal colony because the colonizers have brought us here and then they put us inside the system that they have created as settlers in this country. That's what we're looking at. That's the kind of stuff that's gotta be, you gotta knock those ideological things out of the way so people can see the future, people can see where it is that they're located, people can recognize who the hell they are. And that's the fundamental way, fundamental path to liberation. And of course, in the final analysis, the key to liberation is the masses of people, and especially the working people, who have nothing to lose, as it's been said, but their chains and their shame. So that's why the critical and strategic thrust of our movement has to be to bring the working people into political life. And I've seen it happen before. And I've seen what democracy looks like. And when you looked at the Black Panther Party in the past, and you looked at the struggles where great struggles were happening and people were taking of our own lives in our own communities, that's what you were looking at. A more or less effective struggles against colonialism. We've done it before. And we can do it now more effectively than ever before. So I just want to say those things. We're going to show some clips now about some of what happened during this period. We went into Washington, D.C. We had a press conference on Friday. We had later Friday, we had a pre-rally rally. And then on Saturday, we had the march, a rally and the march and the rally. And then on Sunday, we had a conference. And so those are the things that we will talk about and call on people to participate in this discussion. And some of us were there, and we call on you to participate. And I want to just make the point that one of the things that we were doing with this is pushing the struggle to free the Uhuru Free, exposing this attack on the African movement, on Black people, which is what it was. Because success in this attack on the Uhuru Free, on the African People's Socialist Party, to take us to trial and say that we were Russian agents, we were working for Russia. It lays the foundation for saying that any criticism that Black people make about conditions in this country can be characterized as they liquidated. It's not real. It's something that was created by some foreigner, some alien, and in this instance, Russian. So that's part of what I want to say, and we can move it, come at.
Okay,
Y'all wanna come down so you can see the clips. Well, first one up. Let them come down. And this is at the conference.
So before you will be a tip from the Black is Back Coalition meeting last weekend. So as we do a little housekeeping inside the house, is situated, we'll be showing that clip in about 30 seconds or so.
I'm talking about the humiliation that's imposed on all of us. I'm talking about the starvation, poverty, the murder that happens on a regular basis, so much so that it's a part of a tradition that doesn't get recognized as murder. So much so that we can live in a country, and I was talking to comrades before this meeting began, how people can talk about conveniently genocide are being committed against Palestinians and be really upset. And I really appreciate that appreciation of the genocide being committed against African people. They talk about the rise of fascism, and they know fascism is happening, trying to happen because of Donald Trump. But Donald Trump was not even a factor in political life when they began wiping African people out. I mean, they're talking about fascism. They've created a notion that this thing they call the Holocaust is the worst crime that's been committed against humanity. I see people at what they call the Holocaust Museum in this country, and it represents the worst crime ever committed against humanity. But the very land we're standing on, the very land that the Holocaust museums are on, is there as a consequence of the murder committed against the indigenous population. And as long as we fall for this notion that the worst crime that's been committed in humanity, against humanity, was the crime that white people committed against each other in Europe that they call the Holocaust, then it's a cover, isn't it? It functions as a cover for the murder of the indigenous people whose land we're on right now. It functions as a cover for the murder of African people that's so normal that nobody characterizes it in a special way. They say that we're approaching fascism. What are you talking about? Fascism? And this is the horror of a loss of freedom. They say we have to be afraid of 2025 is around the corner. That's what Trump's going to do. I don't know if that's going to be worse than anything that's ever happened to us on the Democratic and Republican administrations. It's the colonial powers that we're looking at. I mean, it was the Democratic Party and the Republican Party that got together and killed Patrice Lumumba. It was Eisenhower going out of power and Kennedy coming into power that made that happen. So this whole question of fascism, it too functions as an opportunist position, certainly by most of what calls the white left and much of what calls itself black left. It recognizes, this obscures the fact that what they call fascism is supposed to be an anomaly. It's a peculiar thing that happened in the history with white people. But what happens to us is not an anomaly. It's not peculiar. That's how we got here, this approach. That's the war that they started on Africa 600 years ago. That's why I'm here now. This was not a voluntary trip. Africa came under attack. And this attack on Africa spread African people throughout the world. That's how we got here, gunpoint, various other places, etc. And what they refer to as the Holocaust that happened to Jews was something happened on the foundation and the mound of bodies and centuries of murder of African and indigenous people. I will not accept this notion of even fascism. I mean, we can talk about fascism, and I don't like bad things happening to anybody, but I don't like that. I don't like the notion. Let me take that back. That's some bad. things that I think should happen to some. But this whole notion, that, and it functions as opportunism, because it functions as something that covers up the crime of a social system that came into existence through murder, through wiping us out, and the rest of it. Nobody remembers. Was it 1927 when Jews were Germans? That Germany went into Southwest Africa, and nearly that's now characterized as Namibia, and nearly wiped out the Nama and Herero people in that country. When Jews were Germans, this happened. But if the worst crime happened in humanity was what happened to Jews in Europe, then that's obscured. It liquidates everything that's happened to everybody else in the world. I don't like the fact that Jews got killed 20 million, but 27 million Russians were killed in the Second Imperialist World War. And so this whole notion of special people, or how is it characterized that the Jews are the what? Chosen people. If I were a Jew, I'd run like hell from that characterization. Because that's the basis of killing Jews, isn't it? They say Jews ain't like everybody else. I'm saying Jews are people just like every damn body else. They have to take their chances just like everybody else. And if they want to end the oppression of Jews, then they work with the people who are colonized and not kill people, not join in the colonization of people who live in the territory that they're engaged in stealing right now.
All right, before we go a little bit further with the program, we're gonna get into it. We want to have a little revolutionary culture at this time, and we're gonna bring up our comrade Westbrook.
Fist up, fight back. Westbrook. Fist up, fight back. Westbrook, East Malay too. In Africa. Okay. See, we're gonna do a couple things today. You know what I'm talking about? First of all, I want to say justice for Jay. Remember the end. Free Jay today. My brother fight for justice, but not only that, a community fight for justice. My brother has been locked up for 26 years. The state refusing to let him out. He finally got a day in court November 21st. He asked to bring awareness to his date. He's a George Jackson level member. Anytime I tell him that, he always say, you know what? Call it Jonathan Jackson. So I just want to bring a little, awareness to that. Number one. And number two, I want to do this piece that's called, I haven't named it, if I was to name it, I guess. The state must be crazy to think that we back in the days of the Fannie Lou's and the Jim Crow ways. They must be crazy to think we're gonna reverse any course that our kin folks paid. They try to put us up under the grave or in the prison system. That's the same thing. What you mean, general leaders? Come on, think. We'll burn this bitch down within a blink. You forgot about Ferguson? That was bleak. The masses of the people rose in the streets. COINTELPRO, they using the same sheet to attack the Hoover 3 for using that person being meat. Please explain to me how this all makes sense. They trying to put us in the past tense. They trying to leave 50 years of blood, sweat, and tears, but we stand there. But Hoover 3 just know we here. We don't flex so far. It might get tough, yes, it might get hard, but we can handle that because we are gods. You don't fit in a box, so they call you odd. And I'll be that guy. You will be that girl. We'll take over the world. The people revolutionary boy and girl stand up against injustice every single world. Capitalistic colonial system gotta get out of here. Almighty Yesatilla taught us that deal. And that's why they're trying to jail him, but we stand by his side. He'll stand up individual, stood up for you and I. That's why we gotta ride. By any means necessary. Fuck a John Wayne, call me Dirty Harry. Cause if they touch it any Harry on their chubby, they gonna have to bury every cracker that they carry to the fight. We coming, with all our might. Status quo, continue, y'all use the fucking line. We will see liberation in our lifetime. Continued revolutions of the 60s never died. We still alive. We see wiping your lives. And we call you out on it. We put this state on child. And God knock your thing. Uhuru. But I appreciate that. Before I take my seat, I've been working on this new piece in my absence. I just want to give y'all a sample of it. Is that okay? All right. All right. Some say, if you all go, the some say, you all got to quite a moment. Some people still going something. They need one text on to you. Say, I don't care what say, Mama is safely betting on the horse. God, straight up, every God. I hope you got fat on the damn phone. I brought the whole thing. So yeah, how y'all like it? It's not good. I work with it. I appreciate your time. I appreciate y'all. That's what I'm supposed to say. One time we get rival calls to come about this stuff. The best man on the board can tell you this is right. Boom. Anyway, like two. Yeah, Africa. All right, next up on the program, we're going to have a little bit further more discussion. We'll have a panel coming up. And the title of that program is The Trial of the Rule of Free Speech and Struggle for African People. And there are going to be 3 clips that we're going to show. And then, of course, we have to follow more people in person. First clip will be from Jesse Neville, second clip, Kenny Hess. And the third clip will be from the attorney, Leonard Goodman.
So on September 5th, 2 days into the trial, they had an FBI agent who was actually Russian, interestingly enough, Anna Myers, as I think Addie called her, who had reviewed communications supposedly between Alexander Ionov from the anti-globalization movement of Russia and several other Russians that the government claimed without any proof were employees of the Russian government. And you know, our lawyers tried to keep that evidence out because it was complete hearsay. That was the evidence where they claimed that the Russians created the idea for reparations in 2015. So then Leonard Goodman stood up, and because this woman was from the counterintelligence department of the FBI. So her job was to investigate threats to national security. So she was testifying in her capacity as a counterintelligence officer investigating threats to national security. So Leonard Goodman asked her, You said the scope of your work is counterintelligence to investigate threats to national security. Is that correct? As a counterintelligence agent, yes, correct. Is holding a rally and demanding reparations for police abuse or years of forced labor for Black people, is that damaging to the national security of the United States? No. Is protesting police killings, is that damaging to the national security of the United States? No. What about protesting war? No. Is protesting US foreign policy in foreign countries, is that damaging the national security of the United States? No. What about protesting US support for Ukraine? Does that damage national security? No. And then my favorite part, nothing further. Thank you.
That the world that I want to live in, and I know many other white people feel the same way, is the world led by the African working class, by the victory of Africa and African people and indigenous people, and an end to this vicious system that is built on nothing, as has been said, but death, destruction, rape, pillage, the degradation of whole peoples for the benefit of a few, and that we recognize that reparations, as the chairman, as Chairman Omali Shatella has put it out, is not a favor. It is not a one-time payout. It is the return of 600 years of stolen labor of African people themselves stolen, that created the greatest wealth that the system has ever had. Europe was poor, as the chairman said. Europe was poor. It lived in caves when Africa had great civilizations, and Europe built itself by assaulting Africa, kidnapping African human beings for hundreds of years, creating the world economy now known as capitalism, or what the chairman has called the colonial mode of production. And that and that African people have led the fight for the liberation of all people on the planet Earth. African people have undergone lynching, which is mass murder by regular white people against the African population.
And I am a Jewish lawyer that opposes colonialism and war. And I support free speech and dissent, which is the reason why I agreed to take this case. I'm doing it pro bono because I believe how important this case is. And that's what I'm going to talk about is why should we care about this case? As Omali just talked to you all about, we have an economy based on war, based on endless war. And these are wars that are always based on lies because they don't serve the people. And the people want peace. They want healthcare. They want jobs. They don't want war. So we have to lie to the people. The wars serve the donors. They serve the war profiteers. They serve the weapons manufacturers. They serve the people that want puppet governments in other lands so that they can exploit their resources. To get people to support new wars, we have to lie. So I want to take you back for a moment to February 24th, 2022. That was the morning when Russia invaded Ukraine. And then at 1:43 p.m. Eastern time, President Biden held a press conference and he said, and I'm quoting, he said, the Russian military has begun a brutal assault on the people of Ukraine without provocation, without justification, without necessity. This was a lie. And the mainstream lapdog press didn't call him out on it. In fact, if you read the New York Times, every single article had to repeat Biden's words that this was an unprovoked attack. Everyone knew it wasn't unprovoked, but who was willing to speak out and tell the truth? And who had a following and who had their own newspaper, Omali and the Uhuru group was willing to come out and tell the truth. And I'm quoting from Omali for a few days later after the invasion. Omali said, no, this war was provoked. It was provoked by NATO expansion 800 miles toward the border of Russia. He said it was provoked in 2014 when the CIA helped initiate a coup in Ukraine and replace a democratically elected president who was too friendly with Russia and replace him with a NATO-friendly president, a puppet. I think what he called a puppet of the EU and NATO. And it was provoked thereafter by arming this is Umali's words, making Ukraine a country armed to the teeth by the white colonizers, a place that Russia could not retreat anymore. And the fact that the West and NATO used Ukraine as a dagger pointed right at the heart of Russia. Now, these words were beyond the pale, according to the administration. And several months after making these speeches in his newspaper, in rallies, they were invaded by FBI SWAT teams. And after that, indicted federally. This is the first case, the first federal case of which I'm aware, in which an activist group has been prosecuted federally for making political speech in dissent, anti-war speech in dissent. So that's what this case is about. That's why we should care about it. Found a way to charge them, as they always do. You know, there's I think it's a famous Greek philosopher that said, the more corrupt the society, the more its laws. Well, if that's the truth, we have if you look at the federal code, it's thousands and thousands of pages. Well, they found a statute that they could dust off. It's a statute that was intended to target secret spies, people that act on behalf of foreign governments. It's never been applied to a political group that's making speeches. Well, it was used by the federal government to say, well, you are speaking on behalf of Russia when you make those statements. Now, it was conceded at the trial, and we showed that O'Malley and the Yahuwah group have been making the same statements for 30 years against colonialism, against coups, against the CIA involvement in coups, from beginning in Iran in 1953. They criticized that one. They've criticized every single CIA-led coup. It doesn't matter. It was conceded by all of the agents, the FBI agents who testified at trial, that yes, they're speaking from their heart. They're not for sale. They're not influenced. They're not being directed by Russia, but it didn't matter. The government understood we were going to win the charge of being an agent of Russia. So they focused their sights on a conspiracy charge that nobody understood. The federal government loves to charge conspiracy. The jurors don't understand them. The instruction was incredibly confusing. The prosecutor lied to the jurors during closing argument and said, all you have to do, all we need to prove is that there's a partnership with a Russian. So basically what they've done in this case is they've criminalized an activist group making friends and finding supporters in a foreign land that the United States disapproves of, and that was Russia. So it's a very dangerous case. We must overturn this conviction. First, we have to get probation for our clients, and then we have to overturn this wrongful conviction for a conspiracy that the jury clearly did not understand. And thank you again for letting me speak to this group, which I've long admired.
Hands off Uhuru.
Hands up, Africa.
Hands off Uhuru. Hands up. Fist up. Fight. Fist up. Fight. Right on. We got a couple of comrades on stack that's in the on the program virtually, and so we're going to augment just a little bit to give courtesy to them. So we want to bring up first Comrade Betty Davis, who is a member of the Steering Committee of the Black Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations, and she led a panel discussion last week entitled "Free Them All." So, Comrade Betty Davis, we want to hear from you, please, if you're still connected. Over.
We can't hear you, Sister Betty.
Hi there. I want to say yuhuru to my family. So I apologize for the delay. The issue here is freedom. It's not a question of which ruling class gets in to try to push us back to the 1930s. It's the question of, and then what did we do? And it seems to me that if you recognize that both political parties have been responsible for the incredible new slavery incarceration rates of our young, then you recognize that they do not mean us well. And I want to deal with the issue of Uhuru. Uhuru means freedom. And one of the things Brother Ralph Pointer said, any people who separate themselves from their warrior class and do not struggle and support their political prisoners are doomed to failure or extinction. And so I salute the Black is Black Coalition, the African People's Socialist Party. I salute the Uhuru Three for their stand and support for political prisoners. And that is what our panel was about. And we're hoping that you'll take the time, if you were not able to go to Washington, to view the entire program. People cannot see what we see. If you are on this Zoom or webinar, if you are in the audience in person, then you understand that something must be done. But there are some people who, as Stephen Biko say, their minds are in the hands of their oppressor. Queen Mother Moore used to say to us, they don't see what you see, because if they could see what you see, they would be joining you. So join Uhuru, join the Uhuru Three. We are forced to see reality. They do not want us to speak freedom. They do not want us to struggle to get freedom. They do not want us to be free. That is the message of the election. That is the message that the conviction, attempted conviction of the Uhuru Three is bringing to us. We cannot speak freedom. We cannot read freedom. We cannot write freedom. We cannot march for freedom. And so now you know it's time to get crunking. It's time to get started and push back the clock. I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I implore you, support your political prisoners. The first step to educate them that we mean to be free is to free our political prisoners. And I appreciate the African People's Socialist Party and the Black is Black Coalition for making the panel possible on last weekend. Uhuru.
Comrade Davis, who's been in the Northeast working for, years and years, decades for our people. So we really appreciate that. And she just touched on a little bit of things. And then she said, hey, Trump, It's all right, though. I'm gonna have the panelists please come back up to the podium. And we're going to have some discussion and some summations. You're going to give us further summations about the conference itself. But like I said, we also have some people on stack online, so I want to get them out the way, and then we'll still have some time for further discussion. We can move forward. So next up, virtually, we do have Linda Pelseri, ad hoc committee spokesperson, Jennifer Jones, who has been a member of the Fight Back Coalition for the Uhuru Three, and we'll have some. We have some clinical updates to show in regards to that. That is the Linda Pelseri ad hoc committee, and after that we'll have some further summation from our panelists who will discuss the VIP conference.
Our system waiting will be keeping fine.
All right, I think I want to thank you. I want to stand for those who are not here. And today I'm standing for Queen Mother Moore. Today I'm standing for Ralph Pointer. Today I'm standing for Sekou Odinga. Today I'm standing for Matula Shakur. Today I'm standing for the warriors who could not stand here today. And we want to make sure that the three warriors of the Uhuru Three do not have to go into the death camps. But let's face it, there's just minimum security and there's maximum security. And those of us who are in minimum security are trying to keep the Uhuru Three with us. I'd like to honor one of the elders who's transitioned. I believe they have a few minutes of his tape that we'd like to play for you right now.
sad fact. And what we must understand that no people who loses relationship with its warrior society can exist. Let me say it again, because I've been saying it for 50 years and I don't think we get it. No people who lose association with its warrior class can exist. Now let me give you an example. It's been pointed to time and time again that after an outrageous murder by the Army of Occupation or pseudo-members of the Army of Occupation, people get aroused to the point where they march. And we know that that's not good enough. And how can we go through this over and over and over again without changing the way in which we act or react? We've been begging the system for years to release our political prisoners because they are guilty of what we all should be guilty of, working for freedom. This is their only crime. But in a society that has lost war after war, this becomes a reality. As I said, it's my unenviable position to bring these realities to you. And so you may ask, how do we deal with this reality? Well, we must do as all people have done. Sinn Féin, Casa Nostra, all of these things who talk about our struggle, the American struggle for their right to maintain slaves. Their thing. We must maintain, we must have, create, and maintain our thing. And it's easier than you think, because you must feel it in your heart. Our brothers and sisters who gave up life to defend us. Because, and as I go back to what I started with, after one of these outrageous murders by the Army of Occupation.
All right, I'm going to stop that. And I want to say to you today, you are here. And I'm taking a quote from the Jericho movement and the Jericho website. A knee on the neck of long-term political prisoners. And I'm indebted to J.B. Gerald, who wrote this in 2021. The line between clearly defined political prisoners and prisoners targeted to make points for the political power structure is hidden. Criminalization is a standard tool of racial supremacists. George Floyd's death is familiar 1,000 times over because it states the predominant ethnic of law enforcement's historical treatment of a minority population, as revealed in the examples of Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Fred Hampton. But consider the less well-known and large number of former Black Panther and other community activists serving intolerable prison terms, which have taken away their normal lives in trials that can't match objective standards of justice or international law. Guilty verdicts thrived on the targeting mechanisms of the FBI's COINTELPRO operation, withheld testimony, bought witnesses, rights violations, and obvious misidentifications, suggesting that U.S. law enforcement has a difficulty telling Black people apart. At a particular risk of injustice were those who converted to Islam and were targeted for destruction. This is part of the Jericho website in terms of who our political prisoners are. And I want to say to you from the get-go, 10 things you can do for the freedom of political prisoners. Write, and if you can, send money. Join Jericho. Challenge the myth that political prisoners do not exist. Organize a meeting on political prisoners at your home. or your union hall, or your faith-based institution, or your local coffee shop, your bar, wherever you regularly hang out. Post information about political prisoners. Send emails, Twitter, to your friends calling for the freedom of political prisoners. Put up posters, organize support, attend rallies, pickets, demonstrations, be creative. Finally, my name is Betty Davis. We co-founded the New Abolitionist Movement with Lynn Stewart and Ralph Pointer. My comrades are gone. The last thing my warrior mate said, all right, sister, it's up to you, pick up the work. So I want to thank the Black is Back Coalition for giving me an opportunity to pick up the work. And I want to say Uhuru to you. And I want to say thank you to you for spreading the truth. All of you who know me know that we feel that you cannot separate the fight against oppression for the fight against metaphysical imperialism. And what you have heard the chairman say in terms of, no, we don't call it fascism. You got to call it what it is. That's what Queen Mother always said. Call it what it is so that you can be successful in your strategies for fighting it. Yeah. And your attendance at this webinar today is because you want to be able to fight metaphysical imperialism, because you understand what Stephen Biko said, that the greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor are the minds of the oppressed. And if you cannot get up and say, I am a victim of capitalism in a colonial empire headquarters, then you cannot be free, because you will not have the mental tools to know how to fight it. And this is also why I stand for community control of schools, because cats don't educate mice, they eat them. And the majority of our children are in this public school system, and therefore that's where we must be. Yes. So before I go to give you and introduce our panel today, I want you to know the New Abolitionist Movement Blueprint for Freedom. Take control of your community institutions. That is one way of fighting colonialism until you have the revolution that will bring down the system. How to control the educational institutions? Support a new abolitionist movement wherever you are. Vote no confidence at local elections. In other words, stop what Mayor Eric Adams is doing in the New York City Council, trying to destroy the constitutional freedoms that we have. Identify and control all budgets in your schools. Identify and control all contracts in your public schools. Monitor the passing rate of your students. Parents or students must be allowed to not only volunteer, but become paraprofessionals in the schools and move up in the ranks to take over all positions in the schools. Take those damn tests and become teachers themselves. Last but not least, how to control the institutions for alleged law and order. Support a new abolitionist party, vote no confidence, make your politicians accountable for harassment in your community, such as excessive ticketing, towing, sentencing, housing violations, summonses against your property. We call it the black tax. Stop it. 4, enlist that youthful offender facilities be placed in your community. Demand more community representation on these on these prison advisory boards. All right. With that having been said, I want to start talking about our panel today. As you know, we are representing Leonard Peltier, and our first speaker will be Jennifer Jones, our second political prisoner. We are going to free Jamil Al-Amin, the imam, formerly known as H. Rec Brown, and brother Nahimai El Ibrahim will be discussing his situation. And we have free Kamal Siddiqui. Those of you who know Assata Shakur, you understand why he is so important. Pastor Keith will be the spokesman to acquaint you, if you are not already acquainted with Kamal Siddiqui. And last but not least, Pam Africa will be speaking from the Free Mamiya Coalition. However, at any moment, should our comrade call from behind the walls, Brother Mamiya Abu Jamal, whoever is speaking, will stop and let our brother speak. Having said that, we are talking about Jennifer, and I want to be able to tell you that the case of Leonard Peltier, why our liberty is bound to his. The case of Leonard Peltier, Hands Off Uhuru stated, the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee and their work to shows us the history of the case of Leonard, why we must work to free this courageous anti-colonial indigenous freedom fighter who has been locked up in the colonial dungeons for nearly 50 years for defending his people on the Lakota reservation in the 19th century. Known for her
and that is why our legal team, as part of our international efforts, have submitted an input to the United Nations, raising the issue of Leonard's situation and all those similarly incarcerated due to political activity, while flagging the
Looks like we might have had a technical issue with that last clip, that would highlight some comments from Jennifer.
Yeah.
Let us know if it's back ready to go. And if it's not, we're going to move on from a summation from our panelists here.
his life and his freedom. As many of you know, he was recently hospitalized. At this point, the lockdowns, medical treatment, and his incarceration are entirely characterized by death by incarceration. It is an international disgrace, and we will not and we cannot tolerate the torture of Leonard or anyone else. As an update, Leonard is still on lockdown at USP Coleman 1. The lockdowns really highlight the manner, procedures, and what we call conditions of confinement, which keep Leonard in prison and exacerbate his physical condition under what is called by the Bureau of Prisons modified operations. Yet it's simply another form of solitary confinement and death by incarceration. And these lockdowns and the lack of mobility are what are exacerbating Leonard's condition. And though he's not the most mobile, he's on a walker, it helps for him to be able to move. But when they are in lockdown, which is often, he cannot. It's 24/7. But it also highlights the fact that there are a set of constitutional violations which put Leonard Peltier in prison nearly 50 years ago. And at the same time, there are strong arguments that have never been raised about another set of current ongoing constitutional violations that keeps or ensures Leonard's incarceration. In fact, just a couple of years ago, the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention highlighted these violations, stating that by operation of law, Leonard should have been released decades ago, deeming him arbitrarily detained by the United States government. In sum, when the US Parole Commission uses the wrong law to evaluate Leonard's release, as they did during this most recent parole hearing, as what we call an old law prisoner, that is what Leonard is, his sentence is prolonged. If the law is wrong, the sentence is prolonged. And that is why Leonard Peltier currently sits in prison. It's about the deliberate misapplication of law by the US Parole Commission. And so he's sitting there 80 years old in poor health on a walker, and yet he is in a maximum security prison where he sits, and the longer he sits, when he's finally able to move, he collapses.
Okay, Uhuru. That includes the section of the video clip that we were going to, that we wanted to show right now. Right now, we're going to have a quick summation from some of the panelists who were at the mobilization and the BIB conference last weekend. We have Chairman Abolitionist on the panel, Chairwoman Penny Hess, Chair Jesse Neville, and General Secretary of the UAPO, Zaki Buruti. We're going to hear from first Penny Hess, Jesse Neville, Zaki, and then Chair. Approximately 3 full minutes.
Well, I just really appreciate this event, this meeting tonight. And I want to say my leadership, Chairman Abolitionist, and my Jesse Neville and Saki Rudy, the president of UAPO. And it is an honor to be here. And it was very much an honor to be in Washington last weekend where the Black is back. It was really powerful. It's very moving and powerful to hear the presentations and to see Betty Davis and other Jennifer Jones from the Learning Culture Ad Hoc Committee and others who have been there and who have certainly been part of the fight back of Hands Off the Guru, very, very close and active members. And I also want to salute Attorney Lemon Goodman. And it's a powerful thing to know that your attorneys are in the trenches with you. And I feel that that's the kind of stance that they've been wanting to over the past 2 years. Chairman Omali Shatella has given all of the attorneys a powerful political education and shown, he won them to the understanding that the attack on Nuclear 3 is a political attack and it's going to be won among the masses of the people, not among the court, not based on and resting on whether it would be won by law. And as the chairman said, law is the opinion of the ruling class, and that the whole opinion of the ruling class is highly affected by the stance of the people on the ground, in particular the African liberation movement, which has led historically the struggle for everyone, for political rights, for civil rights, for the right to, as the chairman calls it, anti-colonial free speech. So it was powerful to be there. I do want to say that as the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people under the leadership of the African Revolution, that the chairman has always, since the very beginning of APSC in 1976, stated that to us, that we were responsible to go into the white community, to win other white people, to stand against colonialism, and always make it clear that it wasn't racism, it wasn't fascism, it was colonialism. That is the main contradiction, not only facing African people, but the main contradiction facing white people. Because if we want a progressive future, if we want a world of justice, of the ability of peace, of an end to war, then we have to stand against colonialism, not against the ideas in white people's head. And finally, I want to say that I am from the Black is Back and Hands Off the Guru, very moved by the way that Chairman Omali Shatella has redefined what it means for white people to be progressive. Not the left, not the right, but where do you stand in relationship to the Abolitionist, in relationship to solidarity with the African liberation movement. And I feel that we saw at the Black is Back an amazing, beautiful alignment of people literally across the political spectrum in just giving genuine solidarity with Chairman Omali, African liberation movement. It was powerful to see. So this is a new period. We are winning. Chairman Omali Shatella fought like hell, and we are winning. And we are saying all out to the sentencing on December 16th. We need everybody in Florida. We're going to be really hands off and really building that and putting that campaign out. Everybody in Tampa, Florida, for the sentencing, they need to see. We need to be in the overflow rooms and on the steps of the city hall, of the courthouse, and with not enough rooms for people to be there. Of all of the people stand with the Nuclear 3, stand with the right of African people to be free and liberated, and all oppressed and colonized people, from the end of colonialism
once and for all on this matter.
Uhuru. Uhuru. Thank you so much to Kumba and the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. And it's an honor to be here at the Uhuru House for the Sunday rally. And it was also a great honor to be at the Black is Back mobilization this past weekend. And I just want to unite with everything that APSC Chairwoman Penny just stated about the significance of the mobilization and the chairman's leadership in pulling together this coalition for the past 16 years to rebuild the pro-independence sector of the African movement, of the African liberation movement, and to establish the leadership of that. And I had the honor to be both in LA on the first day for the march, the Black People's March in LA, which marched to Africa Town. And that was led by President Matamela Odom. And it was very, very powerful to be there. And I also, and Unión del Barrio from the Mexican Liberation Movement, who have long 40-year relationship with the African People's Socialist Party, and many other organizations were there. And then the next day to be in Washington, DC. And that was very, very powerful as well. And I just wanted to quickly appreciate, a theme that the chairman brought out throughout the entire second day that I was able to be there in Washington, DC, and which was reflected in this clip that we saw earlier, in terms of what Chairwoman Penny spoke of as well, the whole question of fascism, and especially as it relates to the question of Jewish people and the so-called Nazi Holocaust. And I wanted to mention this because there's a lot constantly in the news about this question. Right now, people have probably seen all of this stuff about this soccer game in Amsterdam where they claim that these Israelis were attacked by Dutch soccer fans, and they're saying that it was some kind of anti-Semitic attack, and that the safety of Jewish people hangs in the balance. And of course, when they were sending in police to round up Palestinian and African and other students, even Jewish students on campuses throughout this country over the past year who were out protesting in support of the Palestinians, they justified those arrests by saying they were doing it to protect Jewish people in the name of Jewish safety and security. And it brought me back to an event that I attended when I was still relatively new to the Uhuru movement in 2011. During the Freedom Summer Project that year, we organized an event at the University of South Florida called Beyond the 60s. I remember it very vividly, actually. And the chairman spoke at that event, and there was a comrade there who was also Jewish, who asked a question during the Q&A, asking the chairman what your message was to Jewish people as it related to the question of Palestine. And the chairman said essentially a variation of what was stated in that video, that Jewish people who are concerned about the oppression of Jews should find their liberation, their future, in uniting with the colonized, uniting with colonized people, African people, Palestinian people, indigenous people who have been facing a Holocaust for hundreds of years, instead of joining in on the colonial genocide against the Palestinians as well as against African and indigenous people in this country. And the way the chairman said it that day was seared into my being forever. He said that he is concerned for the Jewish people, because if Jewish people who call themselves Israelis in occupied Palestine are not able to get smart and see their interests in uniting with the Palestinian people, in standing with the Palestinian people, in not remaining there as settlers and colonizers living at the expense of genocide against the Palestinian people, I'll close with this, that they would find themselves, as the chairman said, swimming out of Palestine in a river of their own blood. And those words stuck with me forever. A few years later, the chairman and the Black is Back Coalition held a demonstration in front of the Florida Holocaust Museum to speak out against the genocide of the Palestinians. And the chairman said, there's a Holocaust Museum in St. Petersburg, Florida, for European Jews who died in Europe, but there's no Holocaust Museum for the African community, for the indigenous people on whose land, on whose genocide this entire country and system rests. So I just wanted to share those memories of those events and salute the chairman's powerful leadership for, as Chairwoman Penny said in her presentation that we saw, the liberation of African people, which represents the liberation of all people, including us, the colonizers, when we see our interests and our future in standing with the colonized against colonialism. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. Assalamu alaikum. Like power.
Black power.
All power to the people.
All power to the people.
Let me first and foremost just salute the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Let's give a well-deserved round of applause to Brother Turner and all the deputies. Put your hands. And definitely now. Let me just say our organization, Universal African People's Organization, proudly stands shoulder to shoulder with the Black is Back Coalition. And every year that there is a march on the White House, Black People's March on the White House, we support that call. But also let me just say this, and no time is short. First of all, I just want to go back to a slogan that Brother Chairman had made earlier, which ironic, they say great minds think alike. Back in the mid-90s, I was blessed to attend the 7th Pan-African Congress meeting in Kampala, Uganda, with some esteemed people such as Minister Akbar Muhammad of the Nation of Islam, Brother Imani Obadali of the Republic of New Africa, Kwame Ture, also Chokwe Lumumba. And at that time in attendance, the theme was, don't agonize, organize. And I say that on the real side, because as we all say, damn with the government talking about sending them to prison, that we should ideally, and that's the issue that I want to bring forth, that we should have the power to say, hell no, they would not go to prison. But to make that happen, we got to start really being serious with each other, in my humble opinion. The seriousness of it is that some kind of way, we got for every organization that's part of the Black is Back Coalition, need to build up its membership so that we have thousands of folks that's part of the movement, and say ideally next week, everybody across America that's a conscious person, they're not going to work, we're gonna shut down America. Just imagine a day of absence. We have to have that kind of imagination to say that we're gonna punish you as you're trying to punish us. Does that make sense? I know. That's the challenge. And as I see, and in my reflections historically, and the chairman is just always an astute historian, we're seeing a replay of the attack on the Honorable Marcus Masai Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association. As we see the attack on the Uhuru Tree, the attack on W.E.B. Du Bois, as we see the attack in history of the Black Panther Party, we have it again on the Uhuru Tree. So the question, we had a very heavy historical movement. Also, we can go way back into the 1800s, when you had that so-called period of Reconstruction, where it was a shutdown and the creation of the Jim Crow era. So we got battles ahead. And if we got battles ahead, then we gotta have some arms. I mean, gotta have some arms, for real. And so our organization, is saying that this fight ahead, and there's different levels of struggle. Politics is a nonviolent form of warfare. So we got to fight politically to educate our masses of the people on the issues, such as reparations, such as the genocide that is ongoing and continually. We have to have a struggle economically, supporting the Black Power blueprint economically, but also having the power, as Dr. King said, the power of economic boycott. We got to use those tactics. And then last but not least, the other tactic that I just want to salute my brother who gave that powerful presentation of his poetry, citing that we are gods, because we are for real, and that's how we're gonna win. But our organization, I'm challenging every other organization in the Blackest Back Coalition, they need to have a target of membership. On the spiritual side, I'm glad to be able to say it here, that we're gonna be pushing on the spiritual side 144,000 plus. And let me say why I say that. I have no idea about other folks, how they look at the afterlife and that kind of thing. Before I check out, and when I say I check out my last breath, there's a spiritual place I go to that's called Cahokia Mountains. I want to be able to go up top Cahokia Mountains no later than my 80th birthday, but if we can make it happen tomorrow, then I like to say, hey, Creator, here's 144,000 people who basically agree with a platform of upliftment for us, and it could be the Blackest Back Coalition platform, because it's right on time, and say, now, Creator, come on down here and kick some, ass. Because some ass needs to be kicked. Because they're killing us every day. Let's don't play at this, because it's that serious. I ain't saying just pray, so don't get that confused. I'm saying using that force, as I say, we boycott them, push for that concept that our organization pushed that's called proportionate political representation, but have some folks that got their brain right and for the liberation of us as a people. That's how I see it. I'm sorry, that's how I see it. And like I was telling Omali yesterday, I pray y'all hear it to create out there. Don't take me out of this world until I see the day that capitalism. Yeah. Okay. That's my prayer. If you take smell before then, y'all know that. Hey, what can I say? But that's my prayer. Okay. But as the Bible says, faith without work is dead. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. Okay? And I will be here. And last but not least, back to court, Lord. It's a damn shame we have to do that. Because when I was up in court, I was in my brain cussing like a mother. Okay? Know that. Know that! I'm sorry. Thank you for time. Okay. All right, so I just had to say that. But anyway, victory in our lifetime. God bless everyone. Community liberation in our lifetime. Thank you very much. I want us to get out of here on time. I want to express appreciation to the presentation by Comrade President General Zaki Baruti and the solidarity that's been demonstrated throughout this entire process by Universal People's African People's Organization and the participation in the Blackest Back Coalition, which is really an important development for our struggle. One of the most important developments, I think, since the 1960s. I'm going going to be suggesting that the Black and Black Coalition perhaps sponsor the what I was talking about in terms of the discussion by people in the African American movement about this election. And I'll be talking more to comments like you about that. Also, I wanted to say that that this issue of membership is a really concrete manifestation of our intent to be free. Bringing African people into political life, into movements, and that has to be demonstrated. It's not good enough just to talk about it. And I'm extremely self-critical about what we have done and failed to do in the party and in the world movement right here in St. Louis in terms of galvanizing people, our friends, our family members, and people who we are talking to in these communities. Because if we ain't talking to people in the communities, the only people who listen to us is the FBI. And we know they listen to us because they brought to the courtroom something like 2.5 million books of stuff that they stole in terms of material about computers and things like that. I want to say also, that's something that we're going to take on, sure. On next Sunday, we'll be having, we'll reinstate, I'll be here next Sunday, won't I? We'll reinstate, well, wherever I am, we're going to reinstate the O'Malley Talking studies in the morning. And I think that probably what we'll start with is a tactics and strategy. People need to know how the hell we got here. The people who we worked with, and some of them saw that in the courtroom in September when we went through this whole process, and they talked about it. My lawyer went through tactics and strategy. So we need to know what it is we're doing, because sometimes even in the movement, within our own movement, party and the whole movement, I'm startled by the fact that we don't make the connection. We treat everything we do like an event. It's not like part of the process. And that's what we're looking at. It's a process. Revolution is a process. It's not an event. And that's something that has to be reestablished as we go on again. We had an incident that I just want to briefly mention on the day of the election. We attended a watch event with the Green Party locally. And we did that. They invited us, they invited me, they invited Cameron, Kenny, and Jesse, and our movement to come to this event of Legacy. And where they were going to be a watch event. They're going to watch the election coming in. One of the leaders of the local organization, Don Fitz, is somebody who ran for the Senate. So I wanted us to go there and express solidarity. They had demonstrated solidarity with the states, the Border Free and what have you. It didn't come that easy. We had engaged for a while in serious struggle with the Green Party here, but it seemed that we had overcome much. And they had seemed willing to understand the colonial question, adopt the colonial question, and not try to tell us what we need to do to be free, that kind of thing. So we attended the thing, the watch event for the election. And I really wasn't that eager to be there, but I just wanted to show some support for the Green Party. And I wanted to, in fact, we had talked casually about the possibility of even running candidates as Green Party candidates. They had raised that possibility. They had talked about wanting people to run as Greens, and so we had thought that might be a good idea to run some people as Green Party candidates moving forward. And so when I got there, there were several of us, maybe 10 or so people from our movement who were there. And they were looking at some things on the screen. They were looking at reports coming in terms of tallies of how many people had voted for whom. And at one point in the discussion, Don Fitz, the leader of the organization, started a discussion around election interference. You know, that's what they indicted us. They had an hour indictment, election interference. So I said, wow, that's good. He's gonna talk about what I would talk about had I been speaking. And, but he talked about the election interference in the United States government, overthrew the government of Iran, in 1950, what was that, 53? And he talked about how the United States government, overthrew the government of, was that Guatemala? And I said, right on, he's right on target, and the attacks they made on Cuba over and over again. So I said, he's in the ballpark now. And I just knew he was going to mention the World 3 as part of what it was. We didn't, but that was cool. I didn't have any problem with that either. So we moved on, and there was some space left. After people had talked, there seemed to be some space. And I said, if I find some space, I would raise that. And so I found some space, and I raised my hand and said, I'd like to say a few words. And he came over, and he hesitantly, and begrudgingly said, okay, well, you got 5 minutes. So instead of an event, I mean, they could have said 5 minutes, but the way the whole thing unfolded, it was, just very, very, very arrogant. And they didn't even acknowledge our presence when we got there, anything like that. So that was all right. So I got up and there weren't that many people there. And started the presentation. And I made the point that even when you talk about election interference, you have to talk about the difficulties that the Green Party and other so-called third parties have to get on the ballot. That's a form of election interference. They don't even want people to be on the ballot. And then I said, of course, you have to talk about the attack on the Uhuru 3, because they attacked us and because they said something about we were working for the Russians in an election. And we had run for office in St. Petersburg, Florida, and that was part of the basis of the attack. I said, it's really important to see this as election interference. And then beyond that, I said, especially, you look at a Green Party, which is a white party, and you're trying to attract African people, et cetera, that you have to look at when you talk about election interference. You have to, and I'm charged with election interference with the Russians. You have to look at the bombing of that church in Birmingham that killed those girls in 1963, election interference. You have to look at the murders of Martin Luther King, registering people, getting people to vote, election interference. All of this stuff that was happening to us, all of these attacks, Medgar Evers, everybody, election interference. And I'm saying this statement, making this statement, I'm looking at the expression. I thought that, wow, that these Green Party friends of ours would be excited about having some insight on how they can look at this question of election interference beyond what's happening to white people. I had thought they would be excited about our contributing to dealing with this blind side that they have, and most white people do have a blind side when it comes to history and how it relates to black people. But they didn't. And I'm looking at the folk who, as I'm talking, and they don't want me talking about this. And so somebody sat down in front and gave real smug and kind of looked at what the thing said, 3 minutes. So anyway, it was a real serious kind of disc, and I just put the thing down, and we left because of that. And again, our objective was not to go there to speak on the event. We really, really, truly went there as supporters, but I'm not going to be a figurehead. I'm not going to be somebody who shows up so that you can show how you got some black people with you, and you can't even address the issue of African people. And you want to talk about an election interference. I'm just trying to contribute to this discussion so you can see beyond your own nose that black people in elections and interference, that stuff didn't happen all along. You can't have this discussion with me there. With me present, you cannot have this discussion about election interference without talking about what has happened to African people. I could not have been there. That's fine. You say, don't come. That would have been fine. But I showed up to show support, and I wasn't looking for an argument. I wasn't looking for a contradiction, anything like that. I thought that was a serious contradiction, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be in a situation anymore where white people are going to talk about history, talk about what has to be done and what things are supposed to be, and then liquidate the reality of African people. So, and I should say that we have prior history and I just skimmed over that, inferred that, but at one time they talked about not wanting Jesse and Penny to speak at events because all they were gonna talk about is me. And so the great leader, Don Fitz found that rather offensive. That we shouldn't be talking about him, I guess, but anyway, that's what I wanted to mention, just so people can know. I mean, we're not, like you said, we ain't mad. We're really not mad. But we expect, we were free ourselves, we expect that. And we're not even gonna be saying nasty things about the Green Party, except in fact, I said that we really appreciated Joe Stein, who did, come out really well and support our case and stuff. And there were other elements of Green Party from other places that came out very strong. But I cannot sit there in this audience. And I'm facing 5 years in prison. These comrades in our movement facing 5 years in prison. And the whole history of African people in elections. I can't sit there. I just mentioned it. I didn't even expect there was going to be any resistance. I thought they said, wow, I'm glad you mentioned that kind of stuff. But no. I mean, it's real arrogant. It was very white. I'm going to tell you that. It was really, really, really white. And it was offensive. Anyway, comrades, yeah.
Uhuru, all right. We want to thank our panelists for giving us a summation. As time is getting late and rolling, we're going to go ahead and move this agenda to call on resources and membership. Comrade Fofi, please come on up.
Right there. Right there.
Thank you, comrades, and I want to thank the panel, the chairman, Comrade Penny, Comrade Jesse, and Comrade Lakeith, for education that never ends. Uhuru? Uhuru. Now it is time for everybody to get involved, and even you online, you can get involved also. Our goal today is $100. Now we're gonna say $100, but that don't mean when we make it, you can stop there. We gotta keep giving and keep going. For the simple reason, we never stop.
Comment, okay, there are no comments or questions or anything online. Yeah, if you get any kind of issue, any intervention.
Comrades, put your questions in online.
Organize and decolonize from truth futurists. Their ID, their handle is truth futurists. Says organize and decolonize.
What about St.
I don't see any comments unless I don't know their names. St. Pete. Amalia Chatel approves. That's not good to vote green down, but only candidates that don't ignore the colonial question in the U.S.
St. Pete, you online?
Okay. Amalia Chatel's speech proves that it's not good to vote green down ballot, but only candidates who don't ignore the colonial question in the USA. Strong up to Uhuru in the name of good over evil. You'll never go to prison. I don't see any questions. St. Pete, any questions, any comments on YouTube, please. Kabula, if you can see any comments or questions on Facebook.
St. Pete is no longer on YouTube.
Oh, you are correct. I thought they were on what's called. All right. But we've got 30 some odd people watching on YouTube. Go ahead.
Uhuru, are there any questions in our audience here?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, comrades. We would like to move on, and since we don't have any questions online or in the audience here, we want to ask, if you are not a member of NPDM or the Uhuru Movement Organization, I want to see your hands right now. All right, so you're a supporter, and we appreciate you. Comrade, that's for membership. Now, since we got one person, but we appreciate her as a supporter. Now it's time for our resources. Like I said, our goal is $100. If you have $100, click it in online and say you got 100, and we can keep moving with the people that just want to donate. If you have $100, put your hand up and we can call that. Okay, you have $50. We need two $50 people to make our goal. 25. $20. $10 donation. All right.
Great.
Thank you. If you want to donate online, you can go to Cash App, NPDM, INPDUM, or you can go to NPDM.com, NPDM.org/donate. And with that, I will come back and tell you the total of our goal, how much we received, and I want to thank each and every one of you. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you. Next, we're going to have our announcement for the movement. I'll start off with
Foods and Pies.
Foods and Pies.
All right, Uhuru. I'm gonna make this quick. First and foremost, we want everyone to attend our press conference this Tuesday at 10 a.m. in front of the Little Bakery Cafe at 3790 West Florissant. Can I get a quick raise of hands of who can attend? And we also want you to talk to friends, family, neighbors, co-workers. They can come at 10 o'clock because the city has been blocking our attempts to open up the bakery cafe, and we're not gonna stand for it. So, if anybody can help, carry out a role in this, be there at 9 o'clock. We're also gonna have our pies there as well. Which also give you a chance to place an order, which will be picked up here, at the Solidarity Center, and also at various pop-ups we're gonna have coming up, which I'll mention real quick. On that press conference, you'll get the specific members from the neighborhood association to speak on our behalf. Don't know. Have you asked any of them? Well, we have gone and done outreach in the community to people that signed previously our petitions of support for the bakery. And we got some people from the community that will be in attendance, but we do not, as of this day, have anybody from the neighborhood association coming to speak on our behalf. Yes. Yes, on the flyers that we've been passing out in the community, it's calling for people to write the mayor and demand that we get our permit now. I guess I was looking for how you feel
personal action where those individuals who have already signed on our behalf who are facing the council, so I'm asking them. Oh, yeah, we have been talking to people to write letters, and it says so on our leaflets to write letters to the mayor. The band that referred to denial of a permit. Well, we've been talking to people in the community for the past 2 or 3 days, not only participating with us, but also writing the letters to the mayor. We have that email, it's mayor@stlouis-mo.gov, or you can call 314-622-3201. And then also,
Mayor,
yes,
I think one of the issues, as I understand it, listening to some of the discussions for the break, is that the neighborhood association is not even a legitimate registered neighborhood association, not even registered with the city. There's one particular white woman who, Terry Lee Rose, I think her name is, who has been this outspoken opposition to us. And so it's like hard to find somebody from the neighborhood association who we can talk to, because effectively it seems to be something that happens like ad hoc kind of basis. People show up and they want to. I think people would rather to show up at something that they had, and people like Terry Rose work against us. And I understand that some other people who hold government office are also participating in trying to get a lot of us. But we've got a lot of, as I understand, verbal support from people in the neighborhood. You know, like people come out. But I don't think we use some process of saying, go talk to people in the neighborhood association, get them to change their position. We did talk to city council president of the ward, all the presidents, and he said he got a letter done in support for us, as I understand it. And also, I think Kim Collins finally do a letter or something. So, you know, we've worked that, but I don't know if we've went to any, like I said, go talk to the people. These are ephemeral, as I understand it.
Like I said, they're not on any website, not even on the city website. But in any event, we also got some pop-ups coming up at the press conference, as well as on the 16th at Second Shift Brewing. That's going to be from 12 to 8. Again on the 17th. And the 18th will be at Wash U. We'll have a tasting there. And then, of course, the 24th here again. So we're going to be here again on the 17th and the 24th for every rally. On the 26th and 27th, there will be hot pickups, pop-ups happening at both Solidarity Center here at the Brewer House as well. And then on the 27th, we will have, later in the day, we will have pie giveaways. So people that have bought pies and donated those pies, we will be giving pies out to the community on that day. So we want everybody to come and help get those pies out, and people to continue to support Food Pie and Food Baking Cafe. So that's all that I have for information. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to ask me. And I guess everybody's focused in. All right, well, who? Students of the announcements for this week.
Can we say anything about the amount of money raised?
Yeah. And so, folks,
Uhuru comrades, we've raised $95 of the $100 that was asked for in our goal. I don't know if we have anyone volunteered donations online or not, but here in the house, we made $95. Uhuru.
There was online, but it's aggregated to the account, right?
Yeah.
There was.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll add another 5 to make it $100. Uhuru.
One more announcement for the session.
Oh, yes, one more announcement for the city. Yeah, on the board. December the 16th, we're going to have, of course, that's going to be down in Tampa, Florida, so we don't want to have 1 day in prison for any of our comrades. December the, what is that?
16th.
December the 16th, 4 p.m. What is it, 4 p.m.?
That's a rally.
Okay, Monday, okay, that's Sunday, okay, 9 p.m. there's a rally, 9 a.m. partly there's a rally, so you want to start packing the courthouse, that's December 16th. And then there's the press conference at 12, that's going to be outside Tampa, Florida, on the courthouse, that address is 801 North Florida Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33602. And there's going to be a lunch that will commence at the Uhuru House back in St. Petersburg, that's 1245. And 18th Avenue, and then at 3 p.m. there will be the summation and rally. That's at the Uhuru House at the same address. So all the forces that can get down to that area in St. Petersburg and Tampa, Florida, 15th, 16th, please make it down there. Uhuru. So today, Caribou is Taco Night. It's our Sunday rally. Join us next week here at the 4101 West Florissant Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, on the corner of Valley, St. Louis, West Florissant.
I tried calling, yeah, she's okay.